Just because you believe something a long time does not make it right. But we must be renewed in the spirit of our mind. You can be born again and filled with the Spirit and still think and behave as you did before you were born again, because you have not changed your thinking. So it is psychological in that there must be a modification, a transformation in our belief system, in our thoughts. And then it is behavioral, because your behavior won't change until your thoughts change. But the idea that God punishes us through heartaches and sorrows, that he puts us through trouble to make us strong in faith, is a great misconception that we have to change, Sandra.
Well, you know, the other thing is that whole concept of what Jesus had come to do was to eradicate us from the burden of laws. Old Testament laws that did not reflect God, because I think those laws were made to protect the people. I really believe that they were not the laws for harshness, but I think they were to protect the people. But they've been preached as harshness, because when we see the vengeance of God in the Old Testament and we see the love of God in the New Testament, God's love has always been there. It has never changed. And when we begin to look at the scriptures from a different eye and see that God's intent was to help us and to protect us, not to punish us, except when we violated, his laws, then as a loving father, if you are a loving parent, if you don't correct your children when they do wrong, they continue in those ways, and you reap the benefits of that. You reap the benefits of their wrongdoing. You live with that. I was talking to a person about generational tendencies, and they kept saying, well, my mother had heart trouble, my grandmother had heart trouble, and my aunts have heart trouble. And I said, tell me, what do they eat? And they had high-fat diets. They did not exercise. They were, they love food. I said, well, until you eat better food where you don't have high cholesterol in your blood system, until you change your diet, you're going to be just like them. Because it's not God putting it on you. It's you not being responsible for you based on the information that he's allowed us to have about health and nutrition. Because when you navigate the journey, it's just not a spiritual journey. It's a practical journey. It's how to live every day in the spirit and in the natural, because we're a tripart being. How to think right. People pray for God, please change my mind. But the scripture says, you be renewed in the spirit of your mind. That means we have to, by an act of our will, begin to change our thinking when it's in contradiction to the principles and laws of God. And that's not an easy thing to do. But if you really want to excel in the things of God, even when you're greatly challenged and you don't want to get depressed and get under all the things that people get up under, we renew our minds daily, and we renew it by the scriptures. We renew it by affirmation. We renew it by looking at the wonderful things of God.
And Sandra, one of the things that we have observed in our studies of the scripture is that, once again, in navigating the journey, the critical issue is our concept of God. And when the concept of God is wrong, we have a tendency to try to add things to the salvation experience that are unnecessary.
Yes.
The Galatians, for example, they were delivered from the law, and they received the Spirit, but they went back to it. The Colossians wanted to add things. They worshiping angels and observing days and times and seasons, and all these things because they thought that what God had done was not sufficient.
Yes.
I think one of the things that we're wrestling with today is the sufficiency or the deficiency of our faith. And most of that has to do with our conceptions about God. So in this whole discussion about navigating the journey, we have crossed the waters in talking about God, about some of our views of God. God chooses to speak something before he does something.
Yes.
God is not limited by time nor space nor the weaknesses of people. God has no restriction. God is not limited by our faith. We used to think that God can't do anything if you don't have faith. Well, the demoniac didn't have faith. The young boy whose father said he was possessed, he was cast into the fire. We can say that his father had faith, but the young man did not have faith. I would say that a dead man has no faith. So we are learning that many times God does things even in our weakness. But the critical factor is that we understand the things of God. So we've been talking here in these last seconds here about navigating the journey, the critical factor. We have made a strong effort to talk about God. Who is God? What is God? Not only the acts of God, but the ways of God. Our conceptions of God will greatly influence our attitude and our behavior, because what we worship we become.
Yes.
What you worship, you begin to emulate. And so we hope that you will follow with us as we continue our series, Navigating the Journey. We're talking about the things that face you and the things that you face. I'm Kirby Clements.
I'm Sandra Clements.
We're the Clements Family Ministry, and we've been talking to you about navigating the journey, the critical issues.